We've got 3 this week that are going there first, and one of them actually has been delayed for 3 years due to, of all things, Me Too, effectively.
So, interestingly, we're working in the rule of 3s here today. You're going to review things in 3 words as well? I mean, I'm really excited about this. Could be a really short podcast.
Well, how do you review Rebel in the Rye, which is finally released 3 years later, other than to give it the 3 words, Kevin Spacey returns? Make of that ominous chill what you will. Yeah, so the reason, obviously, this is the whole thing, because you remember that movie Tolkien with Nicholas Hoult?
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the only one of those he did. Nicholas Hoult also played J.D. Salinger in Rebel in the Rye. You know, J.D. Salinger who wrote Catcher in the Rye. This is his story. So Nicholas Hoult, in the space of about a year, played 2 iconic authors. This, of course, being the story of J.D. Salinger, his upbringing, how he fought in the war, and, of course, how he came to find his roots as a writer.
There is nothing more sacred than story.
How does that sound, Mr. Salinger?
Through the course of my fascinatingly dull life, I've always found fiction more truthful than reality.
I write short stories.
Have you been published?
You're not the first wise ass I've taught.
Can't stand all these flits and phonies. So what do I do now?
You're a writer. What do you think you do now?
Write another story.
And then another one after that.
How is writing a real profession?
And then another one after that!
I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
Maybe you're not.
I'm wondering if Nicholas Hoult is actually doing a bit of a Robert Pattinson here. He's going for the lower budget, sort of more interesting movies, building up his craft, getting a bit more well-known as a serious actor, moving away from X-Men, things like that. And then we're going to see him take on a massive role in the future, a highly anticipated role.
I think we will. Yeah, I think we will, definitely. This is, I would say, like, you can make the comparison to Pattinson. I think Hoult is far more sugary a performer in terms of his role choices than Pattinson is. Something like Rebel in the Rye, and indeed Tolkien had this as well, which does have that cookie cutter, boilerplate biopic sensibility. Kevin Spacey, you know, if we don't think about the real world side of Kevin Spacey, is, you know, fine in this. He's typical Kevin Spacey mentor role. There's a role in there for Victor Garber, which always makes me happy as well. I thought this was generally perfectly fine. I wouldn't describe it as an amazing film in the same way that I wouldn't have described Tolkien as either. Is
the idea of the life of J.D. Salinger actually interesting enough to kind of keep your attention for a couple of hours?
Well, to be honest, I'm not overly familiar with Salinger outside of Catcher in the Rye. And so it had, for me, it was all about, okay, I'm just watching a biopic of an iconic author. I had no real attachment to the author or his work. It's not like Tolkien, where, you know, we've had decades of, you know, being obsessed with Lord of the Rings, that there is something inherently interesting in there. Worth checking out, I would say, if you want a sort of cheap, if you want a nice, cheap and cheerful, cookie cutter, Sunday afternoon biopic.
Easy to watch film.
Easy to watch, yeah. Watch it with your parents.
How many thumbs are you going to give it?
I'll give it 1, because it's fine. It's a great baseline, middle of the road.
Very middle of the road. Nice. Okay. Well, let's move on. We've got another. As Rebel in the Rye sounds beautiful, we've got Edge of Extinction as well. So carrying on.
For which I got to say, the title is cooler than the film. This is a sort of low-scale British film that's obviously been made unreasonably on the cheap, post-apocalyptic fare. You've got to sort of wander a character who's surviving in the British countryside, you know, foraging and avoiding people at all costs. It's basically like a British Mad Max. You know, everyone's gone feral. And teams up with survivors and faces a whole new level of threat that comes upon them. You know how these sort of, you know, tribal savages type tales kind of work. This one is very gritty, very British. Not really any known talent.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, again, you'd expect if this was out in the cinemas, it's really good if you can kind of catch this on digital. But if it was out in the cinemas, it probably wouldn't get that much of a viewing audience, because no one to kind of hold the title for it, no one to, you know, to really push this with their star power. So it's really interesting to see that this might get more of an audience. Although middle of the road, there is like a Mad Max audience out there that just likes to see those type of movies. They might pick this one up.
Well, I believe it's the second film from the director of The Dead Inside. So he obviously has a very specific sensibility, and that is adhered to here. He's very much a grisly zombie film, but again, made on the cheap, and you know, I mean, it has that look of a film that's been made.
Can you feel the cheapness?
Yeah, you can feel those £200 4K cameras. You know, sort of faux 4K cameras that they do. You know, the ones that aren't actually 4K, but they just add all the digital grain. Those you can feel that all the way through. Much better faring, though, and I will say this is the best of the 3 films put on digital this week, and it's being called in the UK Killer Instinct. Now, I know it from everywhere else in the world where it's referred to as tone deaf. Now, it has a terrible poster with an awful photoshopped version of Robert Patrick, but it's the story of a bratty millennial played by Amanda Crew, who you might remember from Charlie St. Cloud with Zac Efron. I know her primarily from Silicon Valley and the movie Sex Drive, because that's my go-to film for any scenario. And she is a bratty millennial who sort of loses her job, boyfriend walks out on her, she decides she's going to go and stay outside of LA, she's going to go and clear her head, so she gets an Airbnb that's this sort of nice old house, and she goes to stay there, and she meets the guy that owns it, and he's a sort of cranky, I think he might have Alzheimer's, it's sort of hinted that he might have Alzheimer's, widower, a sort of boomer, who's decided he wants to indulge his murderous side, and he's going to kill everyone who stands for everything he disagrees with, which, guess what, turns out includes millennials.
As you can see, Edith had rather eccentric tastes. I'm a more simple man myself. She just recently passed away. But she'd be happy to know that her little slice of heaven is bringing somebody else joy.
Sorry for your loss.
Got my money?
Yeah.
$60 more.
We agreed on 500.
You'll get it back. It's just a precaution in case you make a mess.
Can I just Venmo you?
Venmo?
Robert Patrick and Amanda Crew there. That's a pretty good pairing, to be honest, for me.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, I feel like you've been moving up and up and up in your recommendations this week already on these 3. It feels like I get that instinct that you like Killer Instinct.
Killer Instinct, tone deaf. I'm not sure which one to go with. I'm going to go with tone deaf anyway, but we'll have to keep referring to it as Killer Instinct for the blog purposes. But it has issues. Now, first of all, it is a very sharp film in that way that something like Cheap Tricks is. But at the same time, it wants some of that don't breathe money, but it wants to do it a lot more comedically and a lot more satirically. Now, the problem with that is when it's trying to take itself seriously and trying to get, Amanda Crew's character fixed as the sort of audience POV point, she's overshadowed rather heftily by how good Robert Patrick always is. Robert Patrick is, he comes with an innate level of nostalgia anyway because of the Terminator series, because of, roles in Scorpion and The Unit and things like that. So we're sort of inclined culturally to just gravitate towards Robert Patrick. He doesn't disappoint. He absolutely swings for it. It's a bit meta at times. There's a truly hallucinogenic sort of dance sequence in it. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking. It's only 87 minutes long, though. It's got some sharp barbs. It's got some great moments of Amanda Crew walking around telling people off for cultural appropriation and being woke enough for people to want to kill her. It's one of those.
Who's going to enjoy this movie? Just quickly,
I think you'd enjoy it. So, I think, to be honest, anyone sort of sat at home.
Are you feeling that I'm really right on?
I feel like anyone sort of above, anyone sort of vaguely woke would find it amusing. I think, to be honest, because it is that brilliant sort of piercing of the OK Boomer sort of subculture. I think there's a lot of fun to be had there. But anyway, most people who have Twitter accounts would enjoy it.
Okay, fair enough. So you've got 3 big movies out on digital as of Monday. You've got Rebel in the Rye, Edge of Extinction, and Killer Instinct. Something for everyone there, and some things to avoid as well. But take your pick. We'll be coming up next with your movies on TV.